that was there's so much confusion with technology and Bluetooth and all of this.
It's it's a struggle. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd say not even a struggle anymore. It's normal, right? It's check this button, and then boom, you're done.
Yep, absolutely. Hey, it's nice to meet you, man.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Thanks for reaching out. It was kind of I looked at it, I'm like, I'm not quite sure I'm a fit, but I've got a weird enough story where it can fit in almost anywhere.
Well, this is the problem. When I set my account up with Podmatch, I kind of did other interviews other than jazz, but it wasn't full
Yeah.
time. So once I got in that environment, I can't switch my feed to famous interviews. So I interview people from all
Oh.
over the place, but my predominant image now is the jazz. But you know what? It tends to still pull people in. People are like, cool, jazz. So I guess it just plays testament to the idea that people think jazz is a pretty cool little thing in the world. So it's good.
It's more the people, I think,
Yeah.
right? It's like jazz people are going to be the right people.
Yeah. Right. Let me
You know
tell
what I
you,
mean?
man, I didn't realize this until I got into it. I started doing jazz radio in 2011. Of all the people that I've ran into, and I've run into a lot of people and done a lot of things, because I'm a visual artist and a photographer and a writer, and I've done
Okay.
all kinds of things in my life. I have never met finer organisms than jazz people. They are
I,
grounded, they're cool,
yes.
they're talented,
Yep.
they're visionaries, they're wise. There's all I always envision them as all of these wise people in turbans in Cloud City and Empire. They're just sitting in the tower looking at us like, are they going to get it one day?
You small-minded people,
Yes. You
please,
you
please
muggles.
catch up.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I still think there's whenever I think jazz, for whatever reason, it still brings me to this. There's a jazz bar. I grew up in Chicago or near Chicago, a suburb, and there's the blues city, but there's also a pretty crazy ass jazz really just a whole vibe there, and there's a whole underground kind of a jazz. Anyway, I just still think back to this jazz bar I went to when I was about 20 something, and just in the basement, and I forget, it's a famous place, and it's just bananas. But the jazz was, this guy's going over here, there's another guy going down here with the guitar and the rhythm and the bass and the organ. It's going in every freaking direction,
Uh-huh.
and my mind is blown.
Yeah.
And they pull it all back together
Yeah. 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 Was it the
musically.
Green Mill?
No, it's in it's a, you go downstairs. It's a basement place. It's quite famous.
Okay. Yeah.
This would have
I
been 35, 40 years ago.
Yeah, I know the Green Mill is a big place there, but I always think about Von Freeman when I think about Chicago, and there's a lot of really good modern cats. I talk to jazz people from Chicago all the time, and
Okay.
and for me, Chicago is one of my favorite cities on the planet. I love it
Yeah.
there. I've been there a lot, and it's just so cool.
I'm a fan too.
Yeah,
Although, it's a little bit like a lot of the cities, it's under a little duress at the moment.
yeah,
Well, that the urbanization thing's still happening, kind of
yeah.
they're trying to figure it out. Some cities are kind of cool. I'm here in St. Louis right now,
Okay,
and they've got this. I ended up staying in one of these loft places, which seem to be quite popular now, where they take these old industrial buildings,
yep.
either cooler houses or storehouses, and turn them into condos and apartments. And they've turned this whole area, kind of refurbed it into a art district.
That's what
Very
Kansas
nice.
City's done. It's kind of a
Okay.
template that a lot of urban cities like
Okay.
Kansas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have the bottoms, which used to get flooded out all the time. Used to be where all the cattle were. My dad,
Yeah.
he moved here. He was born in Brooklyn, raised in Long Island. And he moved. He got in the military to see the world, but he got here, and he used to always tell me stories about that area that's now an arts district. And fine, used to have to breathe in and hold your breath because the shit smell was it was just you had to blaze as fast as you could. But now it's this urban empire of hip, cool bars and art galleries and all kinds of things. And you just got to hope that levee doesn't break because it's right by the
Yeah.
river, man.
It'll be ugly after that.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
was looking
But
to see where my schedule takes me. If I end up when I end up in if I end up in Kansas. I'm going to be in Kansas, Wichita and Topeka.
okay. Well, you're kind of a hop, skip, and jump when you're at Wichita, but man, Kansas
Yeah.
City, I don't have you spent any time here?
No, I'm wondering why it's not on my map. That's what I don't understand.
The
I've got a
Kansas,
little. You can't. We'll be able to see it. No,
yeah, it,
can't see
it's
it. Um, I have a map that I've laid out for the trip. So I'll look at this after. Let me look at it real quick because there we are. I'm not curious why I'm not going to. I mean, there's two cities I pick. One is I pick just one random city in every state, and
Yeah,
then I pick state capital.
yeah,
So it's weird. I can't even see. Okay, I'll have a look afterwards. So
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure. I mean, I should be going to Kansas City. That's a great city. I
It
can't believe I'm not going there.
Yeah, you should. I mean, in Kansas City, I mean, we're gonna get the World Cup. I'm still in shock. And
I,
are you
like,
kidding? I don't know what's going on. And then the NFL draft a few weeks ago, which I didn't know what to expect, but I went down there. I was blown away. I've been in this city my whole life. I've lived in urban areas. I'm
yeah,
actually out in the suburbs now, but I am just amazed at how far we've come and how progressive we've become and how many things have just, I mean, the jazz scene's great, the arts. I
yeah.
mean, when people come here for the arts, they're just like, wow, they had no idea. There's a there's a heightened level of art and culture in Kansas City that people I don't think realize.
Hey man, the Midwest is to me is it's the heartland. It's the genesis of a lot of. I think the coastal stuff highly overrated. It's
Yeah.
condensed,
Uh-huh.
but there's so much good stuff. Just walking down the street last night and stuff, and I bet this weekend it's going to be very cool.
Yeah.
Studios, all kind of studios and stuff down here, and there's
Yes.
a ballparks near here. It's like
Uh-huh.
the way they've done it is genius.
Yeah, it is. And Kansas City wants to mimic that. They're wanting to get out of our stadiums are kind of on the outskirts and they
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
kind of take the page that St. Louis, because I'm impressed when I go there and I see that downtown village there. It's pretty hip, you
It's
know.
genius. It's
Yeah,
genius. What is it? Charlotte? I was in Charlotte. I think it's Charlotte is the same way.
yeah,
The stadium and everything is right downtown. I've got
yeah,
a friend that he bought a condo. He's like literally right across from the baseball field.
yeah,
It's nuts.
yeah.
The whole areas.
The
It's
urban
cool.
planners all have a playbook they're coming out of. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I think it's the same. It's some big, consulting companies kind of advising them.
yeah, for sure. Well, hey man, it's great to meet you.
Yeah,
I want to make sure that we dive into your life.
yeah.
So before we get into like where you're at. You have a very interesting story. I want to know, how did you survive COVID?
Very lucky. Actually, in a weird way, I was in Asia and I was bouncing around. I happened to come out of India and land in Vietnam. And right in about January, I guess. And they closed the door behind me about 2 weeks. 2 weeks after I got in, that was it. Country locked down.
Wow.
And for 12 months, there's no flights in, no flights out. I mean, you could get out. There were some repatriation flights, but very, very difficult to get out,
Yeah.
impossible to get in. And they locked us down for a year. And that was through the first wave. And they didn't really, there was nothing in the country. I mean, they basically, well, it's a communist country. So as soon as something popped up, they just like locked a whole village down or they just do whatever the fuck they want to do, right?
Yeah.
We're just gonna like there was a hospital story that like somebody tested positive on one of the floors. And they literally came up and just chained the entire building.
Wow.
So like delivery guys who happened to be going in there delivering a pizza, 14 days in the building locked and
Wow.
they just literally came up and just went, wrap the chains around it. Just like, if you happen to be inside at that moment, good night.
Yeah.
Anyway, they did crazy shit like that, but it worked for the
Yeah.
first 12 months. And then of course, Omicron did sneak in and they've had a few ways. So anyway, I was blessed because I was able to really focus on the project. So I spent basically a year and a half working and living and developing the project and
Okay.
finishing my book. So very lucky.
So let's get to the essence of what you exactly do. I know
Yeah.
you've had a company life and you've had a creative life. So let's get into
Yeah.
right now. So I'm going to
Mm.
put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day.
Okay.
Okay. One of the third graders looks up at you and says and asks, "What do you do for a living?" How do you
Mm.
answer them?
I'm going around the country and I'm giving people a chance to tell their story and listen to their story of who they are, and to give that story a platform so other people can hear it and see the similarities in each other, both the good things and the hard things.
The other day I was at a gas station and there was a guy across from me and he it was a Veloster. My stepdaughter has one. And I just kind of said, "Hey, do you
Yeah.
like this car?" what gas mileage, whatever. We just started talking. And he was like an army vet or whatever. And about 2 minutes later, after I was pumping gas, he just kind of looked over and said, thank you for being nice, for talking. And I was like, it's all good, man. I said, we're more similar than we're not. And he just kind of stopped and he's like, yep. And that's really what it is. I mean, when we talk about the political divisiveness that we live in
Yeah.
this country, the reality is that we're all kind of going towards the same thing, but we get
Yes.
ripped apart because these politicians are a bunch of assholes and
Absolutely.
self-serving
Yeah.
egos, and they divide us and cause all the shit that's unnecessary.
Oh yeah, because if we actually paused for a moment in between all these crises and looked at the shit show in Washington, people would I mean, January 6th would look like play day.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we literally should be marching on the place with pitchforks
Yeah.
and nooses,
Yeah.
because it's a shit show.
Yep.
We're being led by real, and he said the divisiveness is intentional.
Yeah.
I truly believe that we have so much more in common. I've really never had anybody turn the show political.
Yeah.
It's a very spiritual. I mean, the questions come from my book called Dear God. It's not a religious book. It's more of a, kind of one person's view on life and the life stuff, heavy human topics,
Yeah.
right? And it's just the purpose is using God as a sounding board to write the letters to. But I've never had anybody turn, in any way, shape, or form, political or hatred or anti this or anti that. And I'm sat down with religious people, atheists, conservatives, liberals, purple haired, flying, flagging, LGBTQ plus SYBD, whatever, and super pastors,
Yeah.
priests. So
Yeah.
I've said, and guess what? We get along with all of them, have
Uh-huh.
great stories. They're all humans.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
We have so
amazing,
much
isn't
in
it?
common.
Yeah.
We have so much in common. I kind of liken it to this term. There's a bell curve, and we're
Yeah.
all here.
Uh-huh.
And somehow we've given these elements on the edges the microphone and the spotlight. And it's like the circus barkers are controlling the narrative.
Yep. Absolutely they are. It's crazy. Well, how did you end up here? Let's go to where you were born and raised and kind of
Yeah.
you have a company life and a
Mhm.
creative life. How did those merge and the seeds that were planted in you?
Yeah. It's good. It's part of that's a mystery. As I said in my bio, I'm a Midwestern kid.
All good
You know, oh,
stories have mystery.
yeah, a well-seasoned Midwestern kid. So yeah, I'm an old guy from the Midwest.
Yeah.
And so I grew up in the suburb of Chicago, ended up going to school in Carolina. So I got a little bit, got out of the north. And then my sister kind of lured me to California. And I graduated, ended up in LA, got married, had kids. I was an insurance guy. And I answered an ad one day to go overseas to live in Hong Kong, work for AIG, an American company. Go, let us move you to Hong Kong and bring your skill set and travel around and, help build our businesses in the various countries. So the different markets. So they had about 15 countries they were in. And so I went over there for, ended up being 20 something years. And I was on that, corporate, basically that corporate, rabbit wheel, right? I was on the hamster wheel, just going and going and going. And I had a lot of creative energy, which I didn't I mean, I knew, but you kind of suppress it because I'm a corporate guy and I'm a dad. I got to bring home the paycheck. And my creative energy was in PowerPoints and strategies. If I gave a speech, how I would give the speech. So I had some outlet for my creativity, but I didn't realize it was there. And somewhere along the way, I started writing on airplanes. A lot of travel, a lot of sitting in airports and cars and moving around. And I started doing some reflections. And I started a book called Dear Dad. It was actually the idea of writing letters as a kind of a form of a narrative was really my dad died when I was 28, and I had this corporate career and I was having success and setbacks and all these things in life that I'd love to have picked up the phone and called my dad. father-son moments.
Yeah.
And I had some great ones, but I didn't have this as an adult. I knew him as a child and a man child, but not as a father, not as a real man, and never had man conversations. And I didn't have that person. And so, that was that beginning of writing something. And then that got sidelined in visiting my mom, who was very spiritual. And her faith just perplexed me because it was like so strong and so unwavering and, like almost like lunatic crazy strong, right? You're like, there's something at some point, you're like, there might be something there,
Yeah.
like
Yep.
she's old, she knows stuff.
Hmm.
And it just perplexed me. And so somewhere along the way, I started the Dear God book. And the first letter I wrote in that was faith. Dear God, what is faith? And asking and kind of, so all the letters have got four, kind of four components. Each topic has four letters. So faith would have four letters. And it's really just about exploring, what is it? How do people keep it and find it? And just my observations about it amongst people as I was growing up. And that all of that writing got put aside because I ended up in another crazy job and all this stuff put in a drawer in a folder. And then I went from the craziest job to the easiest job. So I moved from Indonesia to Thailand. I ended up in Thailand and I had just the best, the worst job and the best job. There's like a nothing job. Just show up every day. And just, some of my experience was enough to just throw that around once a day and I was good. But in that moment, I was back in the US and decided, I'm going to buy a guitar. I'm going to pick up guitar. And so I started playing guitar. And my contract with myself was I want to buy a good guitar. I don't want to buy some cheap thing I'm not going to play that's going to sound garbagey. I want to buy and something beautiful. So I was in this guitar shop and I'm looking around and I'm super intimidated. I'm like, Jesus, man, I don't even know how to hold the thing. How can I I'm gonna look like it's like a real fraud. I'm gonna pull a guitar off the wall
Yeah.
and I'm gonna strum it. I don't even know how to strum. So I'm like, what am I doing here? I'm like, I'm starting to realizing I'm an idiot. I'm in this place. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I happen to see this guy who's kind of moving around from stool to stool and he's grabbing different guitars. And he's about my age, kind of looks like me. And I'm walking around and I'm feeling pretty awkward. And I'm actually kind of thinking I probably should just leave and rethink this, take a deep breath. And I kind of turn the corner at some point, and there he is sitting on the stool, kind of blocking my path a little bit. So it's almost like me and you staring at each other. And I was like, hey, this is my situation. I just want to buy a guitar. Here's what I'm doing. He goes, looks, I said, do you have any advice? He looks at me, goes, the red one. And I'm just like, I must have just looked so confused because I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. He's like, the red one, the one you can't take your eyes off of, the one you want to hold, the one you see it across a crowded room and that's all you can see. And I was like, wow, not about the material, how I hold it, how it sounds, nothing that I need. All the things that I didn't know have nothing to do with what I need. And as soon as he said red one, I was like, done. Yeah. Turned around. That is my red one. She's over here behind me.
Beautiful.
And that was the beginning. So I took it back and the other part of my contract was buy a nice guitar. So I made a contract with myself to buy a nice one, which was buy a nice one, take lessons for 2 years. And at the end of 2 years, I will make an assessment, but I have to commit to buy something nice. I have to commit that I'm going to try. And, and I'll take it to the hard end. And so I did. I got a teacher. And this guy, man, changed my life. Just this intentionality and commitment ended up becoming something so more, because the first thing he started doing on the second or third lesson was, we should write a song. We should write a song. I was like, I can't even play. Yeah, we should write a song. And it was kind of genius because I remembered by the fourth time, I remembered I've got all these words I wrote. We can probably steal some lyrics from the words. So I pulled out my books draft notes, scribble notes, and basically found the faith one. And we were able to highlight lines in it that sounded lyrical and start making a story about faith and the journey of, really, it's a journey of faith. And, and ultimately it's faith in yourself is what the song was about, right? It's all really was all about, yeah, God's nice and everything. But in the end, he just kind of like, shrugs his shoulders and goes, have at it.
Yeah.
That's the song. That's
Yeah.
the song. But it started me on that journey where I was like, I got to write another song.
Yeah.
It was so cool to physically be able to go through and go, wow, that's my song. I wrote, we wrote that together. And then I did another one, and then I ran out of words. I hadn't written very much. So I started writing the book to steal words from more songs. And then I fell in love with the book.
Right on. That's excellent.
Yeah, it's a weirdest way to end up writing a book.
Yeah.
But it's funny how things happen and you can't really see where things will take you. Something as innocent as just pouring my thoughts onto paper.
Yeah.
On an airplane, picking up guitar with the intention of not giving, of making some commitment. And it's almost like, the universe, when I make that statement out to the universe, when I'm making that commitment, it's like, oh, okay, 2 years. Then, things start happening. Give them a teacher, give them the
Yeah.
right teacher.
Yeah.
See where it goes.
True.
I met the perfect person at the perfect moment.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't met that guy, I wouldn't be here today. I'd still be probably in corporate, or I'd be in corporate somewhere.
It's the beauty of life. Of all of these interviews and stories that you do, who would be a dream person? Anybody on the planet that you could interview, who would it be?
Interesting. Somebody in this, of all the interviews, one common thing among the interviewees, I'm going to make sure I say the word right. Theologians,
Yeah.
pastors, and priests, spiritual leaders have been the best, not the best interviews from overcoming human things. So there's different kinds of, these interviews, right? The outcomes. Some of our stories are amazing stories of tenacity and humans overcoming incredible adversity, like the worst parents you could imagine, just situations beyond imagination. And those are amazing in their individual human stories. The interview itself, as far as the questions that I've got and exploring them, which has been for me the most fascinating part, as far as for me growing and learning, has been the priests and the pastors that I've had. Because they know how to tell the story.
Yeah.
And they know how to frame it. So, the questions are very wide open, and you can do whatever. The questions are intentionally confusing, yet open, yet closed. Like there's some magic in the way they're written. And man, but these guys, they lay this foundation down, they put up some pillars, then they put a roof on it, plant some trees around the answer, and they bring you welcome, and then they welcome you into the building, right?
Yeah.
And then and then show you around.
Yeah.
It's just still the first interview is still magic to me. I mean,
Yeah.
Pastor Carl, atheist turned preacher.
Wow.
And but his eloquence and articulation really good. I interviewed a Catholic priest who came out of the church at age 50, and I interviewed another one at my grade school who came in his 30s.
Wow.
So it's really a diverse, and I've also interviewed a trans pastor as well.
Yeah.
Somebody who came out and went through all the surgeries at age 65.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
That's fucking commitment.
Yeah. No shit.
I mean, holding on to that all the way to your 65 and
Oh my
finally saying,
God.
yeah, I'm going to do it.
Wow.
So to get to the answer would be somebody in that, somebody like a Billy Graham, somebody really that's, I would say, because it'd be famous person. If it's somebody I'd want to interview, it'd be somebody famous, and to see what's scratching that surface. Because the jar kind of, you don't know what question you're going to get.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun in that really show you the kind of person these famous, somebody famous would be. But I'd love to meet somebody in that religious space or that spiritual space,
Yeah.
even a guru of some type, an Indian, some Indian spiritual people would be amazing.
Oh yeah.
Jewish leaders,
Yeah.
a Muslim, a cleric would be awesome. Actually,
Yeah.
that's a just actually now I'm realizing I should find a couple of clerics. I haven't done a head of a mosque.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So, talked about music, and we're kind of on this fantastical journey here of
Mm,
just like what if. So, let's
yeah.
say you could get into a DeLorean and you could go back in time and see a concert. Where are you going? Who would you want to see?
For me, it's super. It would be a real tough one. There's about three or I would want Americana, hardcore Americana. Give me a Jerry Lee Lewis, 1960 something somewhere. Elvis. Um, yeah, or an Elvis or Johnny. I'm sorry, the one that was really. I would want to see Johnny Cash, Folsom Prison.
Yeah.
This kind of era.
Yeah.
Real super. I mean, for me, Johnny Cash, Elvis, um, and Jerry Lee Lewis. Just Jerry Lewis. Jerry, am I getting that right? Jerry Lewis? Yeah,
Jerry Lee Lewis. Yeah.
Jerry Lee Lewis.
Yeah.
Um, Super Americana and
Yeah.
just this frenzy of this electric thing kind of overtaking, this kind of stoic, static guitar and the frenziness of it, that change, right? This post World War II, kind of this, it's almost springtime in America,
Yeah.
in a way, everything kind of blossoming and that Americana music.
Yeah. So everyone out there, you get the chance to ask them all these questions and figure out who they
Yeah.
are. So let's find out who you are. Everyone has a perception of you, okay?
Yes.
Family, friends,
Yes.
clients, interviewees, but you ultimately run your show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Hmm. I'm really an interesting, from if I step back and look at myself right now, an interesting and almost like an enigma, because I am this corporate person. I've definitely got that identity, but yet I'm not that person anymore, which is so weird. Like instantly, people ask me, "Do you miss Asia?" No, you, no, that not at all. And I never missed America when I was in Asia.
Yeah.
I was always, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm home. And so, who am I now? It's kind of perplexing even to me. I've been, I don't want to sound weird, but it is what it is. My, kind of where I'm at. I'm really not on my journey, which is an odd thing to say because it is kind of a crazy journey. I'm on this, I'm going to 111 cities. I'm interviewing 444 people. It's not normal. You would
Yeah.
think you would know what you're doing. You would think carefully, and I did think carefully, and I planned incredibly detailed, very intentional. But the ideas coming together, between writing, excuse me, writing the book, using the book for the questions to come up with this concept of putting the questions in a jar and the interview format and traveling. I still struggle, uh, Joe, to find where they all came together, and to say it was my idea is not true. I mean, these are my ideas,
Right.
but this final concept and everything put together is real mystery to me. How I ended up here, and people ask me how did, and I struggle. I remember this part. I know I did this part. I know I did this part, but where the three amalgamated together or
Yeah.
four, yeah, it's not real clear to me. I
Yeah.
just this is where I am,
Yeah.
and so I'm a person on a journey. I'm really on a journey of somebody else's doing, and it's not quite clear what the purpose is yet, but I think it will show me at some point.
So of all the things you've done in your life up to this point, what are you the proudest of?
Proudest of me being I think, a decent father. Got two really well-adjusted girls, two kids, two great kids. So I feel pretty proud of that. I mean, I think if anything, um, I leave that part a little better than I found it.
Excellent.
I think I leave, two kids that are going to do and add to this world um, better than their father
Yeah.
and the sum of it. So that's for sure, my proudest thing. And I just became a grandfather a grandfather for my first grandson this week.
Awesome.
So yeah,
Good
it's
work.
kind of, yeah, it's like exactly. I had nothing to do with it, but I'm like, damn, good work. And my
Right.
daughter, they had two, and my daughter, God bless her, great sales lady. She convinced the husband for one more, and
There you
and I
go.
think I think he's pretty happy he did, because he had
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
girls and now he's got a son.
That's awesome.
So they got the balance.
Yeah, totally. So let me ask you this. If anyone out there wants to partake in your work, your story,
Hmm.
anything more of your book, anything about you, where can they go?
Yeah, the best place is go to our main website, thejar.live. And that's, it's really easy. Everything is there. You can navigate to the podcast. You can also we've got some great YouTube content from when we started. I had somebody put together some city summaries. So if you're not an audio person or a podcaster, and you like this show, you like a video, you want to see some video stuff, you can find that on the YouTube. Otherwise, we're on iTunes and everywhere else. But it's thejar.live. And you can also, if your listeners register there with their email, they can download the first part of my book, the Book of Self. The part of it's Dear God, but it's called the Book of Self, and it covers three topics: your yesterdays, your todays, and your tomorrows, which is kind of that battlefield of your mind.
Yeah, for sure. So what you need to do now to get to Kansas City
Yes,
is find a cleric here. I think we brainstormed without knowing it.
I
We
I
we
love
we
it.
we've come full circle here. The mystery will persist, but at least we got a roadmap to the mystery.
Yeah, and maybe I'll get you on. I'll get you in front of the jar, Joe. Sit down at the
100%. That's what
jar.
I'm saying. But
Yeah,
focus on the cleric, and then
yeah.
on the back end, I'll show you the hip, cool part of Kansas City. We'll do it up.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Promise take me somewhere. Some one of those places where they have one of Kansas City steaks.
Oh, dude, we're gonna do barbecue. We're gonna do things that are underground. And we used to have this tradition in my 20s. We used to do this thing called Get to Know Your City Sunday, and we'd go out and we'd break into places like not like covert like
Yeah,
Ocean's
yeah.
11, but we would go and we would. I mean, it was on. So I'll put my thinking cap on. You find the cleric, and we'll light the candle, man.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna change. I'm gonna alert the team now. New city. I have one. Actually, I have one more city I have to do. I'm at 110 on
Yeah.
my planning is actually the number I'm at, and so I'm missing one city.
Divine inspiration, man. I love it. Ken, this has been great. Thank you for opening up. Wonderful to meet you. And then hopefully we meet again.
Thanks, Joe.
Cool, man. Have a good day.
You too.
Cheers.